Hey, we are live. Hello, everybody. This is the second session on the data visualization, storytelling, or the art and science of mastering storytelling. So, whatever you name it, at the end of the day, we would like to keep it to the art and science of storytelling through the visualization. That's what we look at. Uh, Like always, on this series, we have our expert, Dr. Joe Perez, who will be joining us shortly, and we will talk more about storytelling. We'll talk more about the visualization. We'll talk more about art and science of visualization. Why is it? Because there were some questions as well. Why have you named this? So we are going to answer all of those. Watch out for it, and please keep posting the comments. From where are you joining? If you have any specific questions, you are welcome to ask those questions. I'm Dr. Imad Syed, welcoming now Dr. Joe Perez to the stage. Hello, Dr. Joe. How are you?
Hello. Hello, Dr. Imad. I'm doing well, thanks. How about you, sir?
Very well, very well. I was
Glad
very
to hear
much
it.
looking forward to this
As am
because
I.
we had, yeah, thank you. And we had a great conversation last time. And we really got good feedback. I personally have got very good feedback earlier, um, and then we said, why don't we continue this as a series? This is what we have discussed, and this is the series that we have now. Um, and now, if you look at it, we have Dr. Joe again with us, and let's probably start with the title itself.
Hmm.
Why are we calling it as an art and science of visualization or storytelling? Why is it, Dr. Joe? Because this is the question probably we need to answer.
Absolutely, Dr. Imad. It's an excellent question. You think about it. Data visualization, it's a powerful fusion of both art and science. You got to have both, right? You're transforming
Mhm.
complex data into compelling visual narratives, right? And
Right,
those
right,
visual narratives enhance understanding. Those visual narratives drive decision making. And to pull that off, you've got to have both art and science, okay?
right,
Skillfully
right.
balance the two, balancing an aesthetic appeal with accurate representation. And to be effective, data visualizations not only captivate audiences, but they also
Right.
illuminate insights, those insights that might otherwise be hidden within the
Yeah,
raw numbers, right? So,
yeah.
how do you do it? The art is the thing that captivates the audience, right? The
Right,
science,
right, right.
that's the thing that illuminates the insight. The
Yeah,
art, that achieves the aesthetic appeal. The
right.
science, well, that brings the accurate representation. It's a never-ending question. Anybody can make a pretty chart. Anybody can make a pretty graph. You look at the thing and you ask yourself, is it pretty or is it right? Does it look good or does it work? Are you
Hmm.
achieving form or function? Is it beauty or brains? Is it art?
Yeah.
It's both. Spencer Sobzak, he's a leading authority on this, excuse me, this kind of thing. He's a master data storyteller. He once
Hmm.
said that data visualization is both art and science. The ones that are the most compelling, effective, and do the best job are the ones that achieve a balance between the two. I don't think I have
Right.
the quote exactly right, but that's the idea. We need to balance the two so that you get the complex data expressed, the compelling visual narratives expressed, and you make sure you get it done right, enhancing the understanding with the art, drive that decision making with the science. So you need both. What's
Oh,
what's
okay.
your take?
That's no. My take is that art is something that you represent it from your artistic behavior,
Hmm.
artistic ideology, and everybody can understand a good art Whereas if you represent with the combination of the numbers and the decisions coming out of it and the scientific methodology of it, empower that within the art, and that is the visualization everybody would be able to understand, because ultimately the visualizations are not just for ourselves, it is for
Right.
somebody else that we are creating.
Absolutely.
I,
You hit the nail on the head, sir, because yeah, think of it as a marriage, right?
yeah,
We're talking art and science, okay? You use your head with one, you use your heart with the other. My
right,
wife and I, we've been married for over 40 years. She's my best friend, best thing that ever happened to me. And when I married her, it was a decision. I made that decision with my head, but you take
right,
one look at her and you're like, oh my goodness, wow, this guy had to make his decision with the heart. So
right,
art
right,
and
right, right.
science, yeah, your head and your heart. And to the extent that you can touch both the brain and the heart, then
Yeah,
you've got something good going. So yeah, I agree with you 100%, Dr. Imad.
absolutely, absolutely. Now let me ask you this, since everything that we are building is for the humans, which means that the emotions are there,
Hmm.
the connection is there, the relationships are there. So if you really look at it, we need to bring in some empathy, whenever we are
Yes.
creating our visualizations or creating some charts and those kind of things. And even when you are doing a storytelling as well, these are the things that we need to consider, because all of these are from the empathy perspective. Okay, so
Right.
if I may ask you that, since empathy is involved in it, and what kind of color selection should be prioritized? Is there a way that we must use the right colors in order for us to create the right empathy? What
Sure.
is your view on that?
Well, now, empathy, Dr. Ahmad, that is the secret ingredient in the data visualization in your
Right.
in your cauldron, if you will. Right? How's that for a metaphor? Um, Dr. Ahmad, um, I think that we need to see data through the eyes of our audience, right?
Mhm.
We need
Yeah.
to um, we need to feel their frustrations. We need to anticipate their
Right.
their their
Right.
questions. We need
Right.
to address their concerns. And when we get to that point, that is, when we truly understand our audience,
Right.
we're doing more than simply presenting information, presenting numbers. We are sparking a conversation. We do that with color, right? We're
Right.
igniting a
Right.
passion. You need color to do that. It's a great
Right.
passion of mine. I tell my audiences, I tell my stakeholders, my teammates at work, that I am not satisfied with simply communicating my passion. I'm not going to be
Mhm.
satisfied with that. Not until I ignite my passion within the hearts and minds of the audience. That takes empathy. That's what
Yeah.
that's what we got to do. Right. People will tend to take ownership about something about which they're passionate about. So spark
Right.
that conversation, ignite that passion, and empathy using color. Empathy is the key to doing it. See, data in and of itself, right, stripped of its context, well, it's nothing but numbers. That's pretty boring,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you take that same data and you infuse it with empathy and you show that with color, well, it becomes a language of the heart. Talking about the head and the heart here, right?
Right. Right.
Capable of inspiring, persuading, and even I don't know, even provoking. That's what we got to do. Okay, to um, to truly connect with an audience, we need to go beyond data accuracy and visual appeal. Yeah,
Mm,
those
mm,
things are
mm.
vital. We talked about it. Those things are essential. We must address those elements: accuracy,
Right.
visual appeal. But
Right.
go beyond that. Okay, we need to tell that story that simply resonates on an emotional level, and
Right.
this involves understanding their values, their fears, and whatever aspirations they might have. Now, when we
Mm,
align those data visualizations with those needs, with those desires, we can create some really powerful and lasting impact. That's what it's all
mhm.
about, right? So,
right.
to your point about the color choice, Dr. Mott, um, when we empathize, we'll be sensitive to the needs of our stakeholders. And one of those needs, as you so correctly and eloquently pointing out, is considering the color choice.
Yeah,
For example, we need to be mindful of color blindness for one thing, okay,
yeah,
ensuring that the visualizations are accessible to everybody. We might talk
right.
about that a little later. We can leverage color to evoke specific emotions. For instance,
Yeah,
the color blue is often associated with calmness, right?
yeah, yeah,
Trustworthiness.
yeah,
The
yeah,
color red can communicate danger. Yellow,
mm,
that's a fascinating color when it comes to communicating emotions because it often represents happiness, energy,
right,
optimism.
right,
But at the
right,
same
right.
time, it can also signify caution or warning, not so much as red, but it can. So
Mm,
here's my point. Understanding everything I said, maybe some cultural or psychological significance of color will
mm,
absolutely help us create visualizations that are both informative and emotionally resonant. Again, that art and
right,
science. So, back
right.
to you, sir. How do you see that organizations can cultivate this culture of empathy? I guess that we've been talking about here. How do
Yeah,
they do that within their data teams? To make sure that human-centered design principles that take these things into consideration, like color, that are
right.
integrated into the visualization process. And while you're at it, sir, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on the use of color, Dr. Imad.
See, you actually rightly summed it up and you comprehensively explained, but my point of view is now if you look at a traffic light, everybody knows what are those
Yes.
three colors. What are those three colors? If we just switch that maybe red to maybe a blue and do
Mm,
an experiment of it, I'm telling you there will be several accidents. So this goes with the empathy of it. This goes with the science of it. Like you rightly explained, that each color has a science behind that. Why have we chosen a specific colors? Even when you are choosing the logo colors, when you are choosing the graph colors, when you're choosing any of the colors, there
right.
is a reason behind that. There is science behind that. Not everybody understands that. So I would like us to, keep that empathy in terms of choosing the colors, not to have very contrast colors so that, you are, I understand that sometimes in case of urgency, maybe something that you want to caution it, something you would like to highlight it, you would like to use brighter colors, dark colors, or maybe a color red. But like you very well said, there's a color blindness. And again, I don't remember the statistics, but not everybody can see the red color. And especially
Hmm.
when you're putting down the numbers, they are hard to read. So color choices is something that we really look into it in case if we are practicing empathy. And by the way, like you mentioned, the reports or visualization or dashboards or business intelligence, and it is everything that you are trying to present it via the lens of somebody else, not your
Right.
own lens. Okay, you are doing it for them. So why not use the right color? So I would like to always go with gradient colors so that you do not first of all hurt somebody when they are looking into it. And when it is the numbers that you are representing, metadata that you are representing, keep it on a plain white background with a black font on it or a dark blue font on it. But don't try to bring in, variety of colors when you're representing numbers. And that's what is my, go-to principle for, building any of the visualizations. And again, keeping within one chart or graph, probably 20 different colors doesn't make sense. So you can actually have a gradient. So
Yes.
so slightly gradient colors, if you have it, then everybody will see that, oh, it's a spectrum that we can see it. So those are some of the things. But I think if you really want to practice empathy, color choice is important, and that's the bottom line. No.
Absolutely. Contrasting colors differentiate among groups, whereas
Yeah.
different shades of the same color can indicate the relative strength or weakness of a value. We remember
Right.
that,
Right.
and do what
Absolutely.
you said. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And again, Dr. Joe, from our experiences, your great experience of, learning different things, especially your storytelling techniques and all of that, we would like to give it to our audience. What is it that they must adapt? What is it that they must unlearn? Because,
Right.
this is the era of unlearning several things.
Yes.
We might have learned from, our childhood, but this is the era of unlearning. So the next question that I have is that we know that there's complex data around everywhere. We are
Mhm.
surrounded by complex data. It's not just a straightforward table data. It's a complex data, and then the volumes of this complex data is also a huge. Sometimes it is overwhelming data. So when it comes to that, how do you see the data analysts, or the visualization experts prioritize what information to project, what information to probably keep it at a next level. How do they, look into it? And such as if I just give you an example of it, a complex data of the trading between one organization and then several of the other organizations, and it could be millions of transactions of it and
Mhm.
millions of products and services that you are actually providing to each other. I mean, in that case, building a dashboard stating that how many products have you procured from which supplier, how much of it, or it could be that how much of the spend on what kind of service categories, because it could be hundreds of service categories. So this is a
Right.
complex kind of thing. So how do you suggest the data analysts or the data practitioners or the storytellers practice this?
Sure. That's a very, very good question. An excellent question, Dr. Ahmad. I how shall I put this? Okay. Um, Before people dive into their data, all right, it is
Right.
essential to go ahead and define your objectives, right? That
Hmm.
is, um, have a clear understanding of what exactly it is that you're trying to achieve ahead of time with your data visualization. You have to ask yourself some questions. Things like,
Right.
what story am I trying to tell? What
Mm.
what insights do I want my audience to walk away with? Okay, by
Right.
defining these objectives ahead of time, up front now, you can filter out any data that, well, it doesn't contribute directly to your narrative, at least from the first view. Okay, this
Mhm.
first view, this focused view on your end goal, that's going to be your guiding principle. And it's going to help you to sift through your data more efficiently. Okay,
Right.
so once this objective of yours is clearly defined, the next
Mm.
thing I would do is um, identify the core data points that are going to
Okay.
drive your data visualization in expediting these objectives. These are pieces of information that are the
Mhm.
most relevant to your narrative, and they're the
Right.
ones that they're going to have the most significant impact on your audience. For
Mhm.
example, if your goal is to, say, showcase trends over time, all right, your
Mm.
primary focus might be on time series data rather
Mm.
than individual data points.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm. Mm.
honing in on these key elements along those points
Right.
will help you to reduce complexity. And it's going to make your visualization much more powerful, make it easier to understand. That's the bottom line. Dr. Rahman, data often comes with redundancy. We know that. I'm talking
Yeah.
about things like, multiple data sets, as you expressed, numerous variables that essentially convey the same information. One of
Mm.
the most
Mm.
effective ways to simplify your data visualization, the process, I mean, of putting
Mm.
it together, is to identify and eliminate these redundancies again up front. Not only does
Right.
this end up streamlining your work in the long run,
Mhm.
but it'll
Mhm.
also help you to avoid cluttering your data visualization with a
Right.
whole bunch of unnecessary information. And nobody wants that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
See, okay, each data point that you include needs to serve a unique purpose. And you know
Right,
what? If it doesn't, then you're not prioritizing. If it doesn't, then you can safely take it out. You do
right,
not
right, right.
want to overwhelm your viewer with extraneous detail.
Mm,
Prioritize.
mm,
Now,
mm.
to keep that from happening, that is to
Yeah.
keep your, visualization clear and concise with prioritized data, it's important to make sure you choose the right chart type.
Mm.
I'd suggest using some kind of a chart chooser tool. One
Okay.
example I like is Dr. Andrew Abella's chart chooser, one of my favorites. See, using such a tool can help you to choose the most appropriate chart for both your data and your message, both of which are equally important. Again, ask yourself questions. Am I comparing among items or am I comparing
Mm.
over time? If it's among items, well, then you might use a pie chart or a donut chart, but
Right,
only if you don't have more than, say, 4 or 5 items, six at the very most.
right,
Am I
right.
comparing categories? Well, then a bar graph might be best.
Mm,
Do I
mm.
need to show trends over time? Well, then use a line chart. Am I exploring relationships between variables? Then
Right.
use a scatter plot.
Yeah.
Am I trying to identify patterns in, say, large data sets with many variables? Well, if so, consider using a heat map, right? Heat
Mm.
maps are a great way to
Yeah.
visualize correlations and identify any outliers you might have. Okay,
Mm.
here my point, Dr. Ahmad. As as data becomes increasingly complex, it's only going to be more so. Um, from your perspective, sir, how do you say that corporations and other organizations can balance the need for detailed analysis with the need to get these actionable insights that we've been talking about? Or
Right.
put it another way, how do you think we can make sure that our visualizations are not just simply informative, but
Right.
perhaps
Right.
go farther and drive business decisions? And you know what? While we're at it, if you're interested in taking this on, what's your take on choosing the right chart? I want to hear from a CEO's perspective.
See, most of the times when CEOs are looking at it or CXOs are looking at it, they are not looking at one or two or three dimensions. They are
Right.
looking at actually now, let's suppose a KPI chart. What is the best chart? I mean, to me, the spider web chart is one of them, or the
Yes.
radar chart is something that I like it because just glimpse of it, you would be able to look at all the KPIs. You know, what was the benchmark and what did you achieve easily? I mean, you do not need any further explanation of it. And most of the times I see that, the CXOs needed to create multi-dimensional charts because
Hmm.
the visualization. Now try to represent maybe 6 or 7 dimensions within a bar chart or within a pie chart. I don't think that that's the right way to go.
No.
So radar chart is something that I always prefer in terms of evaluating the KPIs, KRAs, or when it comes to also the meeting the numbers or the deadlines and all of that as well, you can see those comparative charts as well. So those are the charts that I really like it. But like I said, now you have sunburst, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
there are several chart types. Everybody is overwhelmed with it. One thing I would like to mention is that any chart that you choose, if it is not serving the purpose of it, then remove it. And that's why the tools like what we have, that's why the tools like what we have, at PiLog, what we practice, Smart IG tool, you can change the chart type on the fly. And that feature we brought in only to for those people who would like to change the chart on the fly. But there are certain tools where you cannot change the chart type from one to other. There are several restrictions, and I'm not saying that every chart would be translatable or changeable, but at least you keep that particular feature or functionality within your representation, within your
Hmm.
visualization, that at
Yes.
any point in time you change it. Or the other way also is that depending upon the persona, you choose a different chart type. Even that is also possible these days. It's exactly the same data set, it's exactly the same thing, but the persona is different when you have lesser time to tell your story, you can use a complex chart with simplicity in it. But when you have got a lot more time, then you can have multiple charts explaining the same thing. So there are really ways and means of it, and that is something that comes with practice. But again, with the
Hmm.
guidance that we are now trying to give, I think we need to have compatibility between the charts to be exchanged, on the fly or depending upon the persona.
Right.
There is a question coming up. I thought, let me just post it.
You
What are
hit
the
the nail
key?
on the head. Oh my gosh. That is the guys, y'all have to listen to this man. That is the genius of Dr.
No,
Imad. Serious. Consider the audience. Everything that he talked about. Consider the audience, whether you're using this multidimensional approach or a more straightforward approach. A CEO, a CXO is going to have a different set of objectives in mind than
right,
an IT manager or a data scientist or whatever.
right,
What
right,
you were
right.
saying, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, 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 no issues because I wanted that feedback from you. There's a question here. I just, you know, displaying that. What are the key elements that differentiate effective data visualizations from those that fail to communicate insights effectively? I think we covered a little bit, but in the interest of
Hmm.
time and also to answer this, if you can kindly attempt that, Dr. Joe.
Sure. We kind of cover that, but yes, to sum it up, adaptability. Um, how are you able to pivot in order to answer these questions, meet these needs, address these concerns, solve
Right.
these issues, right? Can you adapt? Can you show the flexibility? So I suppose
Mm,
adaptability, flexibility, and accuracy at the same time, because you don't want to sacrifice accuracy for the sake of building something that looks really nice.
right, right, right.
And you distort what's on there, and a distorted chart can lead to a distorted perception. A distorted perception can lead to a misinformed decision, and a misinformed decision can lead to severe
Severe. Yeah,
consequences. And when
absolutely.
that happens, that is the ultimate fail, and that's precisely what you want to avoid. So I'd say if I
Yeah.
could sum it up in the two words, adaptability, flexibility.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. I think, uh, the expert has got his view on it, and I'm sure you got it. Now, the next question. I mean, this is probably the question that we must answer by
Hmm.
keeping everybody in the perspective. Categorization, segmentations. I mean, these are the two
Yeah.
simple words, but the kind of variety, the kind of complexity it can solve is actually enormous. It's enormous. So now the moment we talk about categorization and segmentations, how do you suggest that the data analyst effectively use this?
Hmm.
And how does that complement or supplement with the drill down or the roll up of the charts?
Yeah.
So if you can kindly elaborate
Yes,
and
sir.
connect the dots between these two.
Yes, sir. Excellent. Sure, sure. Okay. Um, Again, that harkens back to that flexibility we were talking about, right? Because
Right, right.
hierarchical structures, I see them as a powerful tool for organizing the complex data you were referring
Yeah,
to further simplify your data visualization process. And I think that's an important thing to do. Consider categorizing, consider segmenting your data, as Dr. Ahmad suggested. Okay, breaking down large data sets into smaller, more manageable segments allows you to focus on specific aspects of the data. And that's without being overwhelmed by its enormity, right? There's
yeah,
so much, what am I going to do? How do you
yeah,
eat an elephant? One bite at a time, okay? Yeah, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're working with demographic data. All right, you
right.
might segment that data by, say, age group or region or gender, ethnicity, or whatever other relevant category that's relevant to your business. Okay,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
approach makes it easier for you to draw meaningful conclusions and to present them a bit more clearly in your visualization. Um, You asked about drill down and roll up,
Yeah.
sir. I'm real glad you asked that, Dr. Ahmad, because you want to ensure that you enable your stakeholders to get both the big picture, the 10,000-foot view,
Mm,
and the
mm,
details as needed, right?
mm,
And how
mm.
do you accomplish that? The only way you can do that is with a hierarchical structure that you've been
Right.
talking about. For instance, a hierarchical structure might involve, let's say, three levels, right? You got your high level categories,
Yeah.
then you got subcategories under that, and then the specific data points at the very end. Okay,
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
this lets users to drill down into the data as desired to
Mm.
explore specific details that they might be interested in, answering the questions. Or,
Right.
on the
Right.
other hand, rolling up to a higher level to zoom out and see the big picture. Either way, I say three levels is ideal. Now, of course,
Okay.
not all data points are created equal, as we say, and some are going to have more significant impact on your audience than others. That's
Mm,
a given. So you need to be able to prioritize the data that is going to resonate the most with your
mm.
audience, harkening back to that empathy we were talking about earlier, or
Right.
something that supports the message of your visualization and the objectives thereof.
Mm,
For
mm,
instance, you're creating a visualization to highlight, say, I don't know, areas of business growth, for instance. Okay, well, then focus on those metrics that clearly demonstrate this growth, the KPIs, rather
right.
than getting bogged down with details that don't matter, ones that don't have as much of an impact. See,
Right. Right.
prioritizing data that makes the strongest case, that will enable you to enhance the total effectiveness of your visualization. Okay, sometimes you come across data sets that are more complex than others, right?
Right.
And in those cases, hierarchical structures can be absolutely invaluable for this
Mm,
prioritization we've been talking about.
right.
These
Right.
structures allow you to organize data in layers from the most critical information down to the finer details at the end. Again, those three levels,
Mm,
right?
mm,
General to specific, like I do in teaching. Start with the broad category and then drill
right.
down into more specific data only when necessary. Okay,
Right.
this approach not only simplifies the visualization itself, but it'll also help guide your audience through the narrative, right? You have to do that. Yeah, establish a narrative, but then guide them through it. It allows them to grasp the main points before diving into more detail. You need to direct that. You need to generate those questions, but direct it. Hey, arouse their interest and keep their interest. I learned that as an
Mm,
educator, and
right.
I've not forgotten it since. Now, Dr. Ahmad, I want to bounce it back to you. As data visualization tools and techniques, these techniques continue evolving today. How can organizations ensure that their data visualizations remain accessible to the widest possible variety of users? Whether we're talking about technical experts or we're talking about the ones that aren't so technically inclined
Technical. Yeah.
among your stakeholders. What's your take on that, sir?
See, what we have done and what we are continuously doing is that we would like uh, the data visualization to be uh, to be democratized, which
Yeah,
means everybody should have access to the data. Okay, sometimes not all the data need to be accessed by everybody because it could have confidential information. We understand that.
right.
That's why you have the data access layers. That's why you have the roles and privileges and all of that. But today, if I look from the organization suffering perspective, not many business users have got information or insights into what is going on because all the tools that are available are very, very technical tools. So I think we are entering into an era where you would have the conversational AIs or the AI agents actually build a graph for you. You do not need to even know the tool. How only thing that you need to know is You ask the question that, you know, how does this look like or what exactly it is, and you ask the statistics, you ask some of the facts, and the system will give you. And I think that is the way forward. And if one of the
Right.
trends that I foresee going into year 2025 is that it would be the year of AI agents. And AI
Yeah.
agents can solve lot of these, issues of differentiating technical, non-technical, business, literacy, of the IT tools or know-how of it and all of that. And I'm really fascinated by that because I believe that the AI agents are conversational AIs that will, mature as agentic AI that's going to take the market by storm. So business users, you don't have to worry about it. There are tools that are coming out wherein you just ask a question and you would get the answer for that. You don't even have to understand technically, and there are certain auto create features that are available
Right.
in some tools. When you throw the data, it actually creates a nice visualization for you, and you choose whether you would like to retain that or build your own. So business users need not learn technicality of the tools. So this NLP, and that's why my favorite AI technology is NLP, because it is
Yes.
bridging the knowledge gap between somebody who is educated in a specific language to somebody who has educated in only in English. So that knowledge bridging between those two is essential, because if you really want everybody to be inclusive of this data and analytics world, then I think it is the way to go.
I couldn't agree with you more, sir. Again, going back to that, knowing your audience, right? Knowing what
Yeah,
works the
knowing your
best.
audience.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Natural
Yeah,
language processing where somebody can just ask the question verbally or type it out on the, whatever the
yeah,
interface happens to be, and the AI driven engine will be able to generate what's needed. But
right.
before people get too comfortable with that, they have to remember the work had to go into it ahead of time to ensure that the data getting fed to it is correct and accurate. So all these other things that Dr. Imad and I have been talking about, those things need to be done ahead of time to prepare so that these incredible, amazing, fancy tools can do what they need to do with it. As usual, you hit the nail on the head, sir.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah,
This one interesting question. There are certain graphs or certain visualization that is always stuck. Such as, I'll give you an example of Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs announced iPhone, see,
yeah,
he repeatedly said something and projected that image or a picture, saying that it's a phone, it's an iPod, and it's an internet. So it is combined in one device. And if you now ask anybody how iPhone was introduced, that memory has lasted now
yes,
probably several decades.
that's right.
And when you are creating the charts or the visualization, you would like to build the memories out of it, because if somebody has seen a visualization this year and then would like to refer it back after a year, what was it, it must actually stuck in your mind. So how do you create those memorable visualizations? How do you leave that impression that lasts for long, whenever you are creating
Mm, I love it.
that?
Yeah. Oh, Dr. Iman, you know, that's that's a huge passion of mine, as a matter of fact, to create engaging and memorable visualizations. Maybe not on the level of Steve Jobs, but whatever level you're at. Okay, this is imperative, folks. We have
Yeah,
got to focus on telling a compelling story with our data. Yeah, let's face it, data visualization. Well, it's ultimately about storytelling, is it not?
right,
And to
right.
make that storytelling process more efficient, we have to prioritize the data that contributes to that coherent and
Right.
compelling story, like we already talked about, right? Data that doesn't fit into the narrative or data that complicates the message, that needs to be set aside. Again, we've talked about that before. I cannot overstress that. When I'm telling a data story, I've got to concentrate on data that enhances that story, right? Just like you do with
Right.
any other story. It's the preparation that
Yeah.
goes into it beforehand. And if you do that, you're going to create visualizations that are not only simpler, but also more engaging and hopefully memorable as well for the audience. Okay, I mean that's how
Yeah.
I do it. I suppose we should all do it that way. But when when you're attempting to do this, to execute this task, as it were, identify, identify what that key narrative is. Do that at the very beginning. And once you do it, use those visual techniques, right? Emphasize the important points of that story. When you're able to do that, you will indeed capture your audience's attention and you are going to drive their understanding. Again, back to that art
Mm.
and science.
Yeah.
Sometimes, okay, you got to admit it's going to take iterative refinement, Dr. Ahmad. You're not always going to get it the very first time around. Won't happen on the first
Right.
try. And again, getting back to that prioritization we've been talking about today, right? I
Right.
think we've
Right.
repeated ourselves 2 or 3 times, but look, as you work on your data visualization, regularly keep going back to it, keep
Mm.
revisiting your data selection, take a second look, a third look, to just make sure that it remains lined up with your overall objective. This iterative process, okay, it's
Mm.
going to help you stay focused on what's the most important thing, what it is that's going to let you make those adjustments on the fly as needed. Each iteration, well, it should bring you even closer and closer and closer to that final product that in
Right.
the end is going to be clear, concise, and makes an impact. Okay, to further enhance the effectiveness of our data visualization, I think we should also leverage data reduction techniques.
Mm.
Okay, the complex data sets that we've been talking about, simplify them. In some cases, well, you might just have much more data than you can realistically prioritize manually. What are you going to do in a scenario like that? Well, data reduction techniques like dimensionality reduction, clustering, and other things that can be enhanced by AI and ML and NLP engines. It's going to be very
Yeah.
valuable. These techniques are going to help you to distill large data sets into smaller, more manageable forms
Mm.
without losing any of the critical information. Your goal? To effectively narrow down the data to what truly matters. That'll
Mm. Mm.
further simplify. Okay, simplify. Yeah. Always, always, always prioritize the data based on its relevance to your current visualization goals. Um, data that might have been essential in one context over here might
Mm.
not be so critical in another different context. Again, considering the audience, right? What do? Continually assess the relevance of the data to make sure that in whatever context, however you decide to include things, um, that it's both timely and pertinent. This relevance check here. Okay,
Yeah.
doing that is what's going to ensure that your data visualization remains focused and efficient, delivering the maximum value with minimum complexity. I think that's an important combination.
Yeah.
Maximum value, minimum
With-
complexity. Keep those two
Absolutely.
together, right? And the key, once again, you hit the nail on the head, Dr. Rahman. Give that man a hammer, okay? Right? To create visualizations that are not only informative but also visually appealing. The
Yeah.
art and the science, the brain and the beauty. Um,
Yeah.
let me toss this back to you, sir. As data visualization continues to evolve, um, what do you see from a CEO's perspective as the most promising trends and innovations that you believe are going to shape the future of this field, Dr. Ahmad? I know you talked a little bit about the AI engines and the NLP and so forth, but if you want to expand upon
Yeah,
that or go in a different direction, whatever, what's your take?
I personally believe that year 2025 would be the year to capitalize. I mean, we have seen generative AI, a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, and it has evolved. Everybody started trying with it. Everybody started, investing into it. And this year was just, it was like a playground kind of thing,
Yeah.
So you had something, try this, try that, and all of that. But I think year 2025 would be to capitalize. And just a while ago, I shot something for LinkedIn where I clearly said that what are the five trends that somebody must watch out
Saw
for.
that.
And okay, and then two of them, now, if you look at it, are related to the data. The first one, I believe, is that AI agents are going to change the way that we have ever understood or visualized the data. AI agents are going to change that because those are going to be informative, those are going to be contextual, those are going to be impactful. So
Yes.
that's one of the things that I foresee and I'm looking forward to. The second thing is, even though this has been a concern for over the years, data quality. Data
Mhm.
quality and data governance combined with AI governance is going to be the trend. So if you now really look at it, Dr. Joe, and I think probably others are also predicting this, is that year 2025 would be the governance and quality of data and AI because we have
Yes.
been, talking about several things. And if that comes in, I think, the biggest boost that we can give to visualization is via quality and governance. And if we can bring that, together into the visualization, I'm telling you the accuracy levels will be higher, as well as the categorization, segmentation, drill down,
Yes.
roll up, all those things would be much more effective and meaningful. And that's what I'm really looking forward to year 2025.
That's another mic drop moment if I ever heard one. That's
Uh,
excellent. I agree with you 100%. It's all
thank
about
you.
yes, the tools are important, but the data behind it has to be right. You have to have the data governance, the guardrails in place to
Absolutely.
ensure that what's being fed to these incredible tools is correct. Excellent
Yeah.
way to put it, Dr. Imad.
Now, the final question,
Mhm.
we might have other questions here, but the
Yes,
final
sir.
question from my side is that if you look at it, the data visualization is becoming very sophisticated, very comprehensive. How do you ensure that the human element is always part of it and it is not lost in this whole technology crazy world? How do you see that?
It's crazy, all right. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's a good word for it. You know, that's a critical point, sir. The allure of all these shiny new tools, these great techniques, be truly intoxicating, right? I want it.
Yeah,
I want it now. I gotta have it. Gotta have it. Right.
yeah,
But in spite of that intoxication, we cannot ever lose sight of the human, this guy right here that's at the heart of every data visualization. Okay, let me
right, right.
encourage our audience, Dr. Ahmad. Do not, I repeat, do not ever forget that technology is a means to an end and it's not an end in and of itself. Please do not ever forget that. We've
Mm,
got to
mm,
resist the temptation to prioritize complexity over clarity. The most effective data visualizations are often the simplest one. We've been saying that until we're blue in the face. I know I'm repeating myself, but look,
yeah, yeah,
we simply cannot emphasize that point enough. Ensuring that our focus is on human centered design
right.
principles and emphasizing the storytelling, that empathy we talked about. When we do that, we can't help but create data visualizations that are both powerful and accessible, like you were talking about earlier.
Right.
Ultimately, Dr. Ahmad, we've got to remember that technology is a tool, and that tool's supposed to stimulate our creativity and not stifle it. It's intended
Yeah,
to enhance human understanding and not replace it. The
yeah, yeah.
key to getting this right is balance. We've talked
Right,
about
right.
that all morning, right?
Yeah,
Strike
yeah,
the
yeah,
right balance between innovation and human connection.
yeah.
Leverage both the art and the science of it all, right? Take
Absolutely,
both
absolutely.
form and function into consideration. And when we're able to do that, then we can harness the full potential and power of data visualization to
Yeah,
drive meaningful change. Because you know what? In the end, the most powerful data visualization is not going to be the one that shows us what we're looking at. It's the one that changes the way we look at everything else.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, American, if I can remember his name, John Tukey. Yeah, American mathematician. He says, John Tukey. He said, the greatest value of a picture is when it forces us to notice what we never expected to see. And you know
Mm,
what? That that is when we go from making charts to making history. As you can
wow,
tell, I am very passionate about this thing. But
wow.
before I blow my lid here, I want to toss it back to you. If you, whatever final thoughts that you have, sir, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, see, everybody is now looking at AI, and everybody thinks that AI is going to make the decision. But I believe strongly that AI can give us decision support, but
Yes,
not the decision intelligence at this point in time.
yes,
Probably in future, right? But do not leave the decisions to the AI. Still, the decisions need to be made by the human being. That's why when you are building the visualization, the action is coming from the human being and human intelligence, combined with, augmented with whatever you are seeing from the visualization. But
amen to
it's
that.
not driven by a tool or an AI agent or anything else. So we are still in a phase of getting the decision support, all the associated support of it, but at the end of it, the decision intelligence, it remains with the human being who has much more what do I say, factors to consider before making a decision based on the data. That's what
Listen to
is
this
my
man.
final.
Listen to this man, please. You hit the nail on the head again. Yes, the AI does
Thank
not
you.
make the decision. The AI helps enhance the process for the decision being made. We are the ones that hold the key. And I think that's what's going to help us to go from, as I said, making charts to making history. I want to make history. I don't want to just make charts.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Joe, it was wonderful talking to you, but we have got, also a time limit. So we are going to end this series or this session now. However, we will continue to evolve further discussions around probably data quality next time. How can data quality empower your visualization is something that we
Absolutely.
can take forward. And probably we'll come back with the new topic and new discussion.
Couldn't
Guys,
agree with you more.
thank you, Dr. Joe. And guys, whoever have joined, all the guests, all the professionals, thank you very much. Listening in, tuning in. And if you have any comments, if you have any questions, keep posting them. Our teams are always handy, with the LinkedIn chats, and they can respond to your comments and any queries that you have. But thank you very much, Dr. Joe, and all the audience. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.